Hey, how's your birthday, man?
I spent time with my daughter.
Oh, good. How old's your daughter?
She's 17. She's about to be 18 soon, so spent time with her. So I guess that's enjoyment for me. I guess spending
Cool.
time with spending time with her. I guess that was the height of it.
Cool. Very cool.
Okay, Lance, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
All right. Do either of you guys have any questions right now?
I'm fine for now.
Okay,
Yeah,
Jeff.
I'm good. I'm I'll probably have a couple. They'll pop up. I've been thinking about this a lot. So, um, yeah, I think when you go back over that UCC, you kind of briefed over it that last video. I've got some questions on that when you come back to it.
Okay. Okay. We'll go over it. Okay. But I was just thinking heavily of a certain thing. I'm gonna have to share the screen real fast. Share the screen. Just a second. Have you guys heard of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights?
Yeah, I think
Yes, I have.
tabs. Yeah.
Have you guys read it?
Yeah.
I have not.
Okay. Okay, so it's could you tell me if the screen is being shared right now?
It sure is.
Okay. There's a point in here that I wanted to show something to you guys. First, we briefly talked about the Declaration of Independence. In the course of studying the Declaration of Independence, there's a couple factors in here that's laid out in here. That they're talking about the states of America, then they have the United, which is a lowercase u, indicating that it's not. The United States wasn't considered a corporation at the time, or the United States. We were talking about the states of America being united, and then the process in the Declaration of Independence, they talk about the people, and then the key word right here is they talk about the human events, right? And what they're talking about when human beings, in the course of human events, becomes necessary for a people. When they say a people, they're talking about a group of human beings organizing themselves together, right? And then eventually they say that these human beings, which form the people, they form these things called governments. So once the people form the government, they show governments. And notice there's a key factor here when they're talking about the government, they use a capital G in government. They're talking about a capital G in government when referring to what the people or the humans, the human beings coming collectively as a people, they form these entities, which are governments, right? Now, and this, maybe you guys might find me wrong, but I've read the Constitution like once or twice, but then I start pinpointing certain areas in the Constitution to better understand the Constitution. And not one time have I ever heard of them mentioning human beings in the Constitution. The Constitution in and of itself doesn't mention human beings. It may mention people, but it does not mention human beings. But it talks about the government. Wait a second, we go to the Constitution.
Hey, tell me, what do you
It
think
talks about
of posterity, though?
posterity.
Yeah.
That posterity, hold on a second, we can go. That means the descendants.
Right. Yeah, the offspring.
Right.
Would you
It-
categorize
it
that as an
didn't-
offspring of like other companies then? Other persons?
Well, yes. But here's the thing, in dealing with the people of the United States are derived from, I wish I had a pointer that I could do this, the people in the several states. The several states in the Constitution are the people that's in the several states. The United States is one entity operating out of DC. And
Okay.
then the people in the several states, they elect individuals to go into DC, which is the United States, since it belongs to America, of meaning belonging to America. So the United States of America. So since the people elect people, since the people in the several states elect representatives to go into Congress in the United States becomes of America. Does that make sense? So, do you have a question on that?
No, I got you. I'm following.
Okay, now we'll go to the posterity. Let's look it up in the Black's Law Dictionary. So we get the Black's Law Dictionary. You see what it says? Future generations collectively. See, when they're talking about, they're not talking about individually in this particular manner. They're talking about the people in general, collectively,
Okay.
not individually, not the actual individual rights. So collectively, we individual human beings, we form the people. So this Constitution is talking about that organization of people at that time, collectively, and their posterity, generations collectively.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to this Constitution. So let's take this. Not right. We're gonna go to the Constitution. So, and I'm pointing out this factor that nowhere in the Constitution does it talk about human beings, because this Constitution is geared around this corporation here, United States, belonging to the American people that put the United States in office. But in the people in generally is the people or the human beings collectively, which form the government. And I want to point something out dealing with Article 4, Section 4. And because I'm going to go to the Declaration of Human Rights, but right now I want to point something out so that we can better understand how statutory law kicks in. Okay. It says the United States. Now we're able to realize that the United States is a corporation that functions out of DC, which operates and goes through the American states for the benefit of the states, respectively, and who then has the rights belonging to the people. But what they say is the United States shall guarantee to every state the pledges between the United States guaranteeing to the states in this union, this organization formed to negotiate with employers, a republican. Remember what a republic is? It's a system of government in which the people hold the sovereign power, a republican form of government. I want to point out this government. When they refer to the republican form of government, indicating the republican form of government, when they use that republican form of government, they use a capital G when referring to the republican form of government. And that's the United States guarantee to the state the republican form of government. So I want to point out this republican form of government, especially when determining this G. They could simply, this capital G, they simply could use a lowercase g if they're referring to a government of a kind other than the republic. But when they use a capital G in statutory meanings, or even in the Constitution here, they're referring to the republican form of government. Because eventually, if you look at any statutes, you'll see lowercase g's, like a government, if you create an organization or a corporation and you have multiple members of this organization, eventually you're going to create this thing called a board of directors. The board of directors in and of itself become the government of that organization. A structure of principles and rules determining how a state or organization is regulated. It says a structure of principles and rules determining how a state or organization is regulated. When we look at what the United States is, and they make it abundantly clear that the United States is in fact a corporation, federal corporations. And then even in the Constitution, it says these federal corporations / the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government. So the structure and principles of how a state such as your state shall be regulated. And what it says the government is the sovereign power in a country or state. And also it says an organization through which a body of people exercise political authority. You remember I pointed out to you guys that our state seal acts as a scepter. When it acts as a scepter, it indicates the sovereign authority, or when a person actually demonstrates the sovereignty that's being dealt with in that particular matter. So it says an organization through which a body of people exercise political authority. The machinery by which the sovereign power is expressed. And what we do is we use the state seal, whether it's by notary, court clerk, or whoever has the seal at that time. That's how the sovereignty is exercised, through this organization. So even in the state, if the state of whatever state you're in, like I'm in Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, they use the state seal, and this organization there is called State of Minnesota. And we the people in Minnesota, or the people of Minnesota, we elect state representatives to exercise that sovereign authority. However, but the body of people are exercising that authority through an organization that we've elected or put in office. Okay, so just understand the whole concept of government. And remember, I think we went over what a body is. It's a body. It's an artificial person, such as a corporation as well. So even the state of Minnesota, state of Washington, state of Virginia, whatever state you're located in, it's actually an artificial person as well. Okay, when we're able to see that, we'll go back to this Constitution. Back here. We'll look at what the judicial power shall extend to. If you were to check out Section 2 of the judicial power, this is the judicial power dealing with the court system. And if we were to read the second section specifically, we'll see what they have jurisdiction over. It says the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States, and the treaties made, and treaties made, or which shall be made under their authority. Remember, in the Declaration of Independence, at the end of the Declaration of Independence, it says, "We Congress establish a General Assembly and do in the name and under the authority of the good people in these colonies / states." What they indicate in that particular situation as the authority that they're referring to is actually the people. So which under their authority, meaning the authority of the United States, meaning, and that's essentially the American people, and And so we're saying the judicial power to all cases affecting ambassadors, public ministers, and consuls, and to all cases in admiralty and a maritime jurisdiction, to controversies between the United States, the controversies to which the United States shall be a party, to controversies between two or more states, between a state and a citizen of another state, between a citizen of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming land under grant of different states, and between a state or the citizens thereof and foreign states, citizens or subjects. Now, a person in hindsight, if you were to realize that none of these are you and you personally, because when we realize that a citizen is an artificial being as well, whether it has a sovereign capacity or it has whether it's put in the position of a sovereign capacity or if it's just a citizen in general. A citizen is a person that is part of a political community, and which actually his citizenship is derived by recognition by the state. So the fact that we are not citizens, these are citizens that are identified on paper, and they all represent the interests of the people directly or indirectly. So now when we look at, and here's a concept that you on first inception, you're not realizing what this means, where it says in cases affecting ambassadors, public ministers, and consuls. Here we'll figure out what the word affection. The first definition of affection, where the word affecting comes from, is the fond attachment, devotion, or love. But we're not talking about that in this Constitution. In this particular situation, we're talking about the pawning or mortgaging of a thing to ensure the payment of money or performance of some other obligation. I'm going to read that again. The pawning or mortgaging of a thing to ensure the payment of money or performance of some other obligation. Now, as we go back to the Constitution, when we realize that the affection is taking place, and so they're going to affect ambassadors. Hold on a second, wrong document. So it says right here, under their authority to, in all cases, pawning or mortgaging ambassadors, other public ministers, and consuls. Noting what an ambassador is it's a diplomatic officer of the highest rank, usually designated by a government as its resident representative in a foreign state. That's the first definition of an ambassador. Okay. Here before we go here, I want to talk about it says a country. That's a foreign country, right? So like China, that's a foreign state. But also when you look at the second definition, it says an American state different from the one under discussion. So now let's say that you live in Washington and I live in Minnesota. We both live in foreign states, right? We're of different locations, and the residents or the officials in each state are foreign to each other. Though though that we are connected as all Americans, we all are different in foreign states. And this is a key factor in understanding how to deal with the United States, which operates out of DC, which is a foreign jurisdiction to each and every one of the American states, because it's a foreign entity. Their laws do not apply to us. For an example, the whole concept of legalized marijuana use. Well, in places like Colorado and California and Washington, they have authorized the use of marijuana for recreational purposes. But under the laws of the United States slash DC, it has not been made legal yet. And though the United States we allowed the United States to have federal jurisdiction for federal reasons, they still cannot come in and impede upon the state's jurisdiction in cases where what the states have held lawful. So because it is in fact considered a foreign state. Okay, hold on a second. What was I going? So ambassadors. Let me go back to ambassadors. And when we hear the word ambassador, our first assumption is, wow, we're thinking about some high diplomatic agent or something to that effect, because we've never really looked at how much importance that we have in our political system. But when we realize that, like in each state, that each individual person has political authority based upon the fact that we're political subdivisions of our state. We all have that one vote. If we have a vote there, we're still a part of the political mechanism in our political jurisdictions or in our. So therefore, as I said, we're a political subdivision of our states. But now once we realize what it says a diplomatic officer of the highest rank, usually designated by a government as its resident representative in a foreign state. So understanding that it's a diplomatic officer of the highest rank, right? Then you go to the second definition. It says a representative appointed by another. It says a representative appointed by another. When we start realizing that, well, in our legal system, are they talking about me? Or are they talking about a person that represents my interests? When they charge a person or who holds legal title to my property, it's an artificial person representing my interests. If in that capacity he's representing my interests, isn't it safe to say that he's appointed as a representative? He's a representative appointed by another to represent my interests. And in this case, a person could be your ambassador based upon the fact that he's represented and he's appointed by another to represent your interests. Then you go to the third definition. It says unofficial or unappointed representative. When we're looking at the ambassador aspect of it, we realize that it could be an unofficial or unappointed representative. So the courts, when they're dealing with this ambassador, we realize that it's basically a representative. We take note that it's a representative. Then we go back to the first definition, which indicates it's a diplomatic officer of the highest rank. Now, back to the Constitution in Article 3, it says affecting ambassadors, putting lien or mortgages on ambassadors, meaning they're putting liens or mortgages on. Then it says, or other public ministers. So the ambassador in and of itself is a public minister, but it's a public minister of the highest rank. But then there's other public ministers. It says a high diplomatic representative, such as an ambassador, envoy, resident, but is not a commercial representative, such as a consul. So now, a public minister is a high diplomatic representative, right? It's a high diplomatic, such as an ambassador. When the ambassador, excuse me, the ambassador, he is a diplomatic representative of the highest rank. So in this situation, it says a public minister, and they're noting such as an ambassador, but does not include a commercial representative such as a consul. And we'll go back here to what a minister is. It says a person acting under the authority or agent. It says the number one. It says a person acting under another's authority / agent. Okay, we'll say, for an example, if I'll use Jeff as an example, me and Jeff. If by chance, for some reason, somehow I can magically assault Jeff, and what Jeff would do, he'll contact the police. He'll contact the police, and he'll say that I assaulted him because he's sustained some type of injury or whatnot. And so what happens is the police come arrest my person, which represents my interests. And what's going to happen is now the state in and of itself is going to actually step in and act under the authority of Jeff, because Jeff called the state in to come in and act on his behalf. And what the state does as a public minister, it exercises the sovereign authority over my person, which is the commercial representative of mine, acting in a council capacity. So when we look at the state of Missouri, state of Michigan, whatever state that you're located in, this person here, this minister, the state of Michigan or the city of Missouri, the city of Detroit or whatever location you're located in, they act as a public minister under the authority. They're acting under the authority of another, meaning the human being who actually they have a duty to. So therefore, they become a diplomatic minister is a diplomatic representative. And we'll go off into what the diplomatic representative, there's a different capacity between the diplomatic representative and commercial representative. Diplomatic representatives have this thing called diplomatic immunity, which consuls or commercial agents don't. So when we'll look at that. Hold on a second, I want to spell this correctly. Now, when we look at ambassadors and public ministers, they have a limited definition. But when we look at consul, it has an extensive definition, and it is profoundly it's kind of long. It says a governmental representative living in a foreign country to oversee the commercial and other matters involving the representative's home country and the citizens in that foreign country. That's the definition of what a consul is. And taking into consideration, it's a governmental representative living in a foreign country to oversee commercial and other matters involving the representative's home country and its citizen in that country. Now, and this is it's kind of fun. It's actually fun to see how this plays out when you're able to actually see that how this government game is actually working. We'll see that we have two different types of citizen that form a trust. We have two different citizens that form a trust. One is like my name is Tommy Crawford. My name is Tommy Crawford. That's what my mother named me. However, when the government deals with me as a natural person, they tell me they would have me fill in a document as Crawford Tommy Paris in all capital letters, and that represents me on the private side as a natural person. However, it's still an artificial person. But then when the state has by birth, the state has created a situation where the state created a title to my person by birth certificate, which the state owns, and that becomes a citizen of the state. And so which is used for commercial reasons. If I open up a bank account, my person Tommy Crawford ends up on that account. If I have insurance, Tommy Crawford ends up on that account. And if I have a job or as an employee, Tommy Crawford will still represent me on that commercial capacity to make sure that all my commercial transactions are transmitted through that person there. So when it says it's a governmental representative living in a foreign country to oversee commercial and other matters involving the representative's home country. Let's say if I was born in Minnesota, the country if you're to check what a country is, a state is also considered a country. By definition, a state is also considered a country. So the representative's country, my state, and the citizens in that foreign country. Understanding, you remember what talking about the privileges and immunities clause? It says the citizen of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of the citizens in the several states. Now, the word "in," it didn't say the citizens of that foreign country. It says citizens in that foreign country, because these citizens in the foreign country are not citizens of the foreign country, though the consul himself is a citizen of that country / state, and it represents the interests of that foreign country or foreign state and the citizen or the artificial or the private side or the citizen in that foreign country, citizen in that state. And what they say here, it says consuls are not diplomatic agents. Diplomatic agents have diplomatic immunity. Diplomatic immunity, they have the ability to claim privileges and immunities as having the political authority in that particular state. So what happens is, since these representatives or these consuls, they do not have diplomatic immunity, since they do not have diplomatic immunity, they're going to go on here to say that they're subject to the jurisdiction of the diplomatic agent. As it says consuls are not diplomatic agents. So unless a treaty provides otherwise, they do not enjoy diplomatic privileges and immunities. So now what happens is, here in this situation, they do not enjoy diplomatic privileges and immunities. So when we the people, we realize, okay, we're going to play this game here, and then we have an ambassador who has what? Diplomatic privileges and immunities. Then we all have a consul, which is another entity who does not have privileges and immunities, and he's going to be used for commercial reasoning, and that's your consul. So my consul, his name is Tommy Crawford. So when a police officer, which acts as a foreign minister, or a public minister, and what he does is he makes a charge against my commercial agent, which is Tommy Crawford. And when he makes a charge against my commercial agent, note what they say here. It says consuls are not diplomatic agents unless a treaty provides otherwise. A treaty is another word for an agreement or contract. It's an agreement. So what if this commercial agent, this diplomatic agent, meaning the state, which is a diplomatic agent that represents the people, if they make a claim against my consul, Tommy Crawford, they have the ability to make a charge against it, and then they bring it to me. One of the people, and I have a duty using my diplomatic agent or my ambassador. By exempting his liability, then I could grant him my privileges through my diplomatic representative, Crawford Tommy, now I could grant him my privilege and immunity. So what they hear, but consuls are entitled to consul immunity, which protect them from local, what does it say? Consuls are entitled to consul immunity, which protect them from local law and jurisdiction to the extent their consul, to exercise their consul functions. Okay, so now they have consul function, they have consul immunity, but that's not the privilege and exemption immunity. So they could act, they're acting in commercial capacities. It says commercial agents of the government reside in foreign parts and charged with the duties of promoting the commercial interests of the state, and especially of the individual citizens and subjects are called consuls. Hold on a second. It says commercial agents of a government reside in foreign parts and charged with the duties of promoting the commercial interests of the state. So now let's say my commercial agent, his name is Tommy Crawford. So now what he's doing is he commercially, if we're looking at multiple different states and in the United States, since I live in Minnesota, my commercial agent, he represents the state of Minnesota. The activities or the vote that he's considered is in Minnesota. So in this capacity, he represents the state. He represents the state collectively in overall dealing with, like, he's dealing on a national level. He represents the state of Minnesota based upon the fact that his activities does not involve what happens in Wyoming. So in this capacity, he represents the interest that's involved in the state of Minnesota. And then it said, especially of the individual citizen or subject. So now, on one hand, he represents the interest of the state. Then on the other hand, he represents the interest of the individual citizen of Crawford Tommy Parrish, which both represent my interest. The state of Minnesota represents my interest. Also, Crawford Tommy Parrish represents my interest on a diplomatic level. However, since my commercial agent is set out there to engage in business for handling commercial activities, so my commercial agent represents my interest. The state's interest and my private capacity interest as an individual citizen or subject. These are called consuls. These, under regulation of some countries, are of different grades, being either consul generals, consuls, vice consuls, vice consuls, from whom consular agents are different. Just a second. Consuls are commercial, and it notes that consuls are commercial, not diplomatic agents. They reside abroad for the purpose of protecting the individual interest of the traveler, the mariners belonging to the state which employ them. Bear in mind, if they charge from inception, when they charge an account, or you commit an offense. If you do a wrongdoing or you commit an offense, what they're going to do is they're going to